Hello, I am C-3PO, and I believe the storyteller is ready, so let us begin.
So the season finale of The Mandalorian starts off where Dr. Pershing and two Imperial pilots are being chased down in a shuttle by Slave One. Slave One has been shooting at them, and they say, we're going to board. They do board, and there's a bit of a back and forth. One of the Imperials shoots the other Imperial and takes Dr. Pershing hostage, and then in the process taunts Cara over clearly being from Alderaan. They do some Empire versus Rebel taunting back and forth. Cara shoots him in the head, taking off Pershing's ear in the process. And then the Cara and Fennec and the two Mandos go to recruit Bo and Casca on some random planet. When Din and Boba walk into the bar, Bo is being an absolute dick. But at the opportunity to get the dark saber, she is intrigued and ensures that Boba and Casca can get along so that they can all get what they want on their main mission to hijack the dark saber and Grogu from Moff Gideon's light cruiser.
There's a bit of a hostile encounter there too, because Bo-Katan is yet to accept the Boba Fett of it all because he's in Mandalorian armor, and we know that Din's on board with that now. But anyway, they're going to put their differences aside, and they're going to go after the child because everybody has something aboard that ship that they want. And so they arrive at Gideon's cruiser. Boba Fett parts ways, I guess. Is this the point when he leaves?
Yeah, so the plan is essentially that they will pretend it's a chase. Boba will pretend to chase them in the Imperial shuttle that they've stolen, and then they will use that as an opportunity to do a crash landing aboard Gideon's ship, and then Boba speeds away with hyperspace.
Right, so inside, they kind of spread out. Cara and Bo, the ladies, I guess, take down some stormtroopers. Din hunts for Grogu. First, he has to do battle with just one dark trooper. He's able to close the door before the entire garrison emerges, but one of them gets through, and that's enough to really shake him down good. Thank God for his Beskar spear. He's able to kind of pry its head off, and ultimately he wins that particular battle. And then he finds Grogu in the cell. I should say first, our other heroes arrive at the bridge. They kill everybody off. They don't know where Gideon is. That's because Din finds Gideon in the cell with Baby Yoda, and he's holding that dark saber.
Yes, and so right before this happens, Din is able to shoot the remaining dark troopers off into space, and so we think that they're gone. Gideon and Din have a bit of a back and forth. Gideon is providing a history lesson on Mandalore because Din never knows any of the context of information, and explaining the importance of the darksaber, and Din does not give a shit. He just wants the child, and Gideon sees this as an opportunity for everybody to get what they want, and he says, take the child. I already have what I need. But Moff Gideon is a mustache-twirling bad guy, and he goes and he takes a full hack at Din with his back turned when he goes to pick up Grogu. And Gideon, I don't know, maybe has a dozen hacks at Din before Din pulls out the Beskar spear. And then the fight we've expected all season long ensues. It's pretty badass, but pretty short. And Din disarms Gideon, has the darksaber, and Gideon is very excited to not be killed because he is eager to see what happens next as Din drags Gideon to the bridge, and Bo is livid that Din has the darksaber in his hand because she knows the history and how that works, and Gideon begins to explain to Din that he is now the rightful heir to Mandalore by defeating Moff Gideon in combat, the current wielder of the darksaber, and he cannot hand it over to Bo-Katan. It is his from combat win. And then as a result of that, Gideon has bought himself enough time that the dark troopers just so happen to be circling back to the ship, and everybody's going to be fucked. They lock the blast doors. Shit's not good.
Right. I guess that's a good point. All that to say, except also Din is very happy to give over the darksaber. It's just not going to be good enough in this moment. And then we kind of put that drama aside, apparently for season 3, because it doesn't come back, because the dark troopers are hammering on that door. It's kind of a Phantom Menace cold open moment, things are going crazy. And then a certain version of rescue appears to arrive. A single X-Wing fighter. Could it be Kim's Convenience? Cara Dune herself is like, great, one
X-Wing. Great, we're saved.
We're saved. Although many of us at home have a suspicion about this X-Wing fighter as it flies into the docking bay. and we begin to watch the emerging solitary figure on black and white security footage in a large robe, which of course indicates to us that, yeah, it's probably a Jedi. Then, of course, we see a lightsaber. Yeah, it's definitely a Jedi. And then we cut to a live action visual of a familiar green lightsaber just
Yes.
rocking the shit of these dark troopers like they nothing. And we're giddy as can be. Do you want to round this episode out for us?
Sure. It's incredible. We get to see the cloak. It's black. Not many Jedis wear black, but one of our favorite original Jedis certainly does. You get to see that it is green. You get to see that he is wearing a gunslinger's belt buckle. You get to see that it is the copper-necked lightsaber that he has. It's every single hint they possibly drop. And then he just goes up to the blast doors and waits. We get an incredible light side Jedi version of Vader's hallway march scene. Instead of taking out a bunch of good guy rebels, it's Luke Skywalker taking out a hallway of Terminator droids. No life is killed, but that essentially he's cleaned the ship up completely, and the guaranteed death of our heroes is completely flipped on its head, and Gideon tries to kill himself in the process because he knows it's not going to go well for him. But that is shut down, and Kara kind of knocks him out with the butt of her gun, opens up the door, and in that entire process, Grogu is feeling the pull from the Jedi. He has his hand on the little screen. He tells Din to open it up. Din asks if he's a Jedi, and he says, "I am," and he explains that Grogu needs training. That Din promises to Grogu that they'll see each other again. He takes off his helmet, and they share a really nice moment. Grogu doesn't want to leave. He touches Din's face, and then he holds onto his leg. But there's one thing we know about Grogu. He may love Din, but he loves shiny, spherical, rounded objects. And the dome-headed R2-D2 beeps his way into the room, and that is enough for Grogu to be, okay, I'll let go of Dad's leg. I'm a little curious now. This kind of seems fun. And yeah, Grogu turns to R2-D2. R2 does his little happy dance, and Grogu puts his arms up to Luke Skywalker. Luke picks him up. And then Din and Luke exchange a glance, and Luke, R2, and Grogu leave.
And our final shot is just of the remaining.
Our hearts broken.
As brokenhearted as we are, staring back into the exit of the most adorable TV character in years. Of course, there's a post-credit scene, but let's save that. Let's talk about that later because we got so much to discuss. I've watched as many times as I've watched this episode, and I kind of pulled a U this week for obvious reasons. Watched it just a bunch. Although I'm a bit of a masochist because when stuff like really hurts my heart, as did that final stare, the helmet, let me look upon you with my own eyes moment. And then, like you mentioned, even more so, the holding onto his leg. Like, it's like reverse Homeward Bound when Shadow comes home. It hurts so much, and I just watch it again to see if I still have the power to feel, and sure enough, I do every single time. As many times as I've watched this episode, or the last 10 minutes of this episode, I've also watched it a lot of times through other people's eyes, because everybody who does a YouTube reaction video channel is, of course, doing the season finale of Mandalorian the last few days. And I found it really striking how few people are able to confirm it's Luke by the copper neck of his lightsaber hilt. Because to me, that was when it was certain. Sure, the green lightsaber, like, I mean, as soon as you see the X-Wing fighter, you know that they know that even if it's not Luke, they know what they're doing. They know that they're suggesting it to you. So when you see the X-Wing, I'm like, okay, I'm 80% sure that's Luke Skywalker, but maybe it's not. And they're doing that on purpose. And then you see black robes and you're like, well, maybe it's Ahsoka, or maybe it's Ezra. Like maybe it's somebody I don't know especially well. But still, they want me to think it's Luke. Until I see that lightsaber hilt, I can't know for sure. And once I do, I know for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And it's something where you see the X-Wing and you're like, that's an old X-Wing. It's very clear that Red 5's, that's an old school. It's got no paint left on it. It's just like this white X-Wing. The black robes, not many Jedi wear the black robes. The green, it's consistently confirming it. But yes, for me, even right before the hilt, you do get to see his belt buckle. And that is not a Jedi's belt buckle. That is Luke Skywalker. But yeah, of course, you know what's coming, and I love the fact that they do the breadcrumbs so that every time you get one of those new things, you're able to cheer. I think it's interesting. You said you watched some of the reactions. There's a podcaster who he's an Aussie, but he's a very, very well known Star Wars podcaster who's been podcasting about Star Wars for about a decade, and he's just a massive Luke Skywalker fan, and he started like an online campaign called Ignite the Green after The Force Awakens.
Nice.
About his excitement for The Last Jedi. There's even a little interview of him interviewing Rian Johnson, and Rian Johnson won't look him in the eyes just about what's about to come, because it's right before Last Jedi. But I saw his kind of reaction, what was happening, because he had a live stream, and he turns into the Joker. He's hysterical.
Wow.
He is like, no, but like a couple seconds in, he has he grabs the lightsaber from next to him, and he's just holding it, and he's just like laughing like the Joker, but crying with excitement, and it's just like ha ha ha, and everybody's so like on cloud nine, because I mean, if you had no idea what the rest of the galaxy was going to be like, Luke Skywalker is your only point off for a hero if you grew up with just the original trilogy. We've been fortunate enough to grow up with original 6 almost. I mean, we kind of remember a sliver of time, if barely, before the prequels came out, but not really. I don't. I can remember like my earliest moments seeing those early movies, but you don't remember kind of that mindset, whereas a lot of people grew up with Luke Skywalker as the only hero. And so I don't, as much as I don't like how many people are bringing up an opportunity to shit on The Last Jedi over this, or they like, oh, this is my Luke Skywalker. And I think that's all obnoxious. It is also really, really nice for so many people to finally, including us, to finally get to see Luke as a fully trained Jedi, and it's doing it in a way that stays true to the character. He's killing droids. He's not killing like stormtroopers. It's not Luke Skywalker. Like, we're not going against, like, yes, it is him taking his laser sword and going up against the First Order. And some people are like, oh, ha, 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 ha. Literally doing exactly what Luke said he wouldn't do in The Last Jedi, except people apparently forget the fact that that's literally what he does at the end of The Last Jedi. So it's all consistency with Luke Skywalker. And I think it's great, because I think the way they handled him in the sequel trilogy is so important. But what you did with the Clone Wars with Anakin Skywalker and with all these other characters, we have 30 years. There's no reason we don't still have 30 years of Luke being a badass. And if we have the ability to tell those kind of stories in ways that stay true to the character and don't seem weird and fit within the storyline, which it already had, because we knew there was a call out to a Jedi, it was fantastic, and checked so many boxes for so many people, which is great.
And I think people forget that this is actually not that removed from Return of the Jedi at all, right? This is 5 years post Return
5 or
of
6.
the Jedi. Yeah, because it's 9 years post Battle of Yavin or something, I heard somebody else say. And so
they've changed it a few times.
Okay, my point is, he hasn't been a Jedi master in the traditional sense. Maybe, I mean, I guess ever, because the tradition is gone, but he hasn't been a powerful Jedi for really that long grand scheme. Granted, he is the most powerful Jedi ever, and so it makes sense that he's so good at this. Of course, he's not actually doing anything hostile in this sequence. It's defensive, because those are machines. And then he shows up peacefully to the bridge, where frankly a lot of other pretty violent folks have been hanging out, good guys or bad guys. I find it interesting that you identified that Luke Skywalker is the singular hero for a lot of longtime generational Star Wars fans, because I'm also not here to shit on the sequels. You know, I like the sequels, I think maybe more than the average bear.
Yeah, I do too.
And I really dislike that for a lot of people, you can't even like something Star Wars without then taking something away from, you know, just 1 minute of Mandalorian is better than all 3 of the sequel trilogy combined. I'm not here for that. However, exactly a year ago, we saw The Rise of Skywalker for the first time, and I liked it, but then over time, we were able to kind of deconstruct what's wrong about it, and therefore the trilogy in general. And one of the things we agreed on was that we were a little Skywalkered out by the end of, making Rey a Skywalker, and just this kind of like neat packaging resolution that it all comes back to Skywalker. And that's fine, but it was like a little problematic. And
I actually don't think they did a great job of it, but I was okay with the Skywalker heaviness, but yeah, sorry.
All right. I was a little Skywalkered out, and certainly psyched to see what more they could do beyond the Skywalker family. And that's frankly one of the great things about The Mandalorian, is that it doesn't appear to involve the Skywalkers at all. And then, as much as I love this episode, and I'm going to talk about how much I loved it for the next hour, they did then they brought Skywalker into the fold, and I'm a little worried if Disney has a Skywalker savior complex. Like at the end of every day, are we going to go, well, but it does come back to Skywalker Palpatine?
No, I don't think it will. I think this was one that we have to consider who wrote the series. Jon Favreau wrote the series a long time ago. Initially, you can tell from the concept art, like it was Boba Fett. It was Boba Fett who rescued a little baby Yoda and eventually, I'm sure, delivers it to Luke Skywalker. It wouldn't surprise me if this was the end of Jon Favreau's original script. It wouldn't surprise me if this was his story and that it was kind of a one saves the other sort of process.
I have a counterpoint to that, because I think it's also possible that though this season was great, it might have been a bit of a diversion from the original plan, because this time last year, Disney didn't quite know what they had on their hands, which is to say, even Disney could not have predicted the cultural phenomenon that Baby Yoda would become.
Well, no,
And
I know.
I think they had to service him in the second season better than they otherwise might have. And now they might be afforded the opportunity, now that they've written Grogu out of the show, at least for the time being, they might be able to get back to Mando being Mando.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's a lot of people have that point, like, oh, you started watching the show not knowing that this kid was going to be in it, but that's not why we still watch the show. The show is about Din's relationship with Grogu, and I don't feel like it really makes sense to deviate from that. And I think that's potentially the case, but I don't think so. I think that enough of season 2 was already. I'm pretty sure all of season 2 was already written before season 1 came out.
Maybe.
So I don't know if
early.
They did, and they had to keep that so much of a secret that it wouldn't surprise me if it is influencing the writing on season 3. It wouldn't surprise me if that as these first 2 seasons have gone, Jon Favreau has changed maybe some of his initial plans. But Luke Skywalker was the only Jedi that Jon Favreau was ever going to put in that situation, because he was the only hero Jon Favreau ever had in that regard. And so it makes complete sense at this time. Who is he going to call out to? The most powerful Jedi in the galaxy would be Luke Skywalker, especially the one who is cares the most at finding the history of the Jedi. So he would be the most likely to be at another Jedi temple, i.e., like maybe Octo, where would be more likely that the call from one Jedi temple could be maybe heard at another. I don't know. I'm just piecing that together in my mind. But it made too much sense for it to be Luke. And I don't think that they're going to go overboard with it being Luke. I think this is kind of one of those little tidbits. And it does connect the galaxy together. But I think the problem is that you can't ignore the Skywalkers simply because this isn't a Skywalker first story. Same way that Vader should be in Kenobi. I kind of feel that way. It may not be the choice that seems the most consistent with the show's DNA, but is the most consistent with the rest of the galaxy.
No, that's different, because Skywalker is implicit to the Kenobi story. Like, there is no Obi-Wan Kenobi like legend. He's a great Jedi, but like he's great because of his relationship to the Skywalkers. That's not been true for Din the Mandalorian.
No, but what has been true for Din since very early on was returning Grogu to wherever he's supposed to go, and there is no Jedi Order. Luke is the closest thing to the Jedi Order at this point. He's the only one trying to start anything, and so it does make sense in that regard, that he does have that relationship existing indirectly. And
it is nice now that, because I know there's a lot of people saying like maybe Grogu's gone, maybe he'll only be back 1 or 2 more times. I mean, They don't write in, we'll see each other again, I promise, if it's not leading towards something. And you're right, that is the heart of the show, is the relationship between this father-son, essentially. But they're going to keep them apart for a little while because they want us to wonder about this for a little while, and that sucks. Yeah. But we're not going to see Baby Yoda for maybe a year, maybe more.
Oh, yeah, over a year.
We're not going to see anybody for a year, but it's going to be a while before we see the little guy again. Hopefully we see him as a little guy again. I wonder if he'll like be different when we see him. But anyway.
Yeah, we could do a time jump. There's some rumor that there could be a small time jump.
Or he could level up Pokemon style. Well,
I have said that before. I still think he's aging like a frog.
Yeah, I think that's very possible too. But what's nice, and to my earlier point about getting back to basics with Mando himself, is that now we have an opportunity to actually explore what it means to be Mandalorian, because frankly, he has no idea, and there's been very little of that. There've been some pretty sizable clues dropped in this season involving the heiress Bo-Katan, involving the Darksaber, the throne of Mandalore, and now the fact that, frankly, the Darksaber is Mando's. It's his property. That's his main weapon right now.
He's the leader of Mandalore now.
And that's right. And in a way, that's all he's ever wanted, right? Like, he just wants to belong to something. So don't you also want to be like an honored member of the culture in which, you so desperately seek belonging?
I think
my point is, like, the next story is whether or not he can actually be the leader that the creed says he ought to be. And frankly, now that we've kind of neutered Gideon, at least for the time being, the main villain is Bo-Katan.
True. I wonder if that's not so much going to be the case. I don't think he wants to be the leader, and I don't think he cares so much about being a Mandalorian anymore. I think that was I think that was part of the point of the second half of the season. I think it's going to be less about him trying to be a leader and just trying to be a good person.
Yeah.
Grogu made him a better person. It made him more willing to and more flexible, and like will he be completely morally lost? What will be will he just completely ditch all of it? What will be the thing that where does he go from here? Who is he aligned with? Because he doesn't have his clan anymore. Is he just going to go follow Bo-Katan around and then realize maybe she's really got some serious control issues, and maybe I don't want to be aligned too much with her, sort of thing? Well,
that's a perfect segue for me to ask you about some of the rules of the Darksaber, because I did a little reading, and here's what I understand. She didn't have to kill Sabine to get the Darksaber the first time, and Mando didn't have to kill Gideon to get the Darksaber from him. And so even though he tried to say, I yield and hand it over, and Gideon's like, no, you can't do that, aren't there clearly loopholes with the Darksaber where he can, maybe they can kind of performatively have a duel and he can let her win? Or is that going to bruise her ego? Because she clearly has a bit of a streak.
Well, that's the thing. And so that's what a lot of people are theorizing, because now everybody says, oh, here's a plot hole. And anybody with enough sense to trust Dave Filoni understands that. I mean, the guy who's given us the most content of Mandalorians, I'm going to guess, remembers that they're allowed to take their helmets off, and will give us an answer as to why Din isn't taking his off. And so I think it's going to be kind of following that same sort of approach. So something happened. We don't understand why Bo-Katan doesn't have the Darksaber anymore, and we don't understand how Mandalore got even worse than it already was. Like the Night of 1,000 Tears sort of thing. Like, what was that?
Yeah.
So a lot of people have been theorizing, and it makes complete sense to me, is that she got embarrassed, and that she ceremoniously took it from Sabine, and that potentially that meant nothing to her people, and that maybe she was just not perceived as a real, as Gideon says, she would be a pretender. And maybe she was viewed as a pretender, and ultimately that's why she wanted to win it from Gideon back, because Gideon took it from her, and she wasn't even really, she never won it in the first place, and Gideon wins it off of her. She's got to win it back. She can't just be given it back. Oh, so you're the one ruler of Mandalore who's never, ever actually won the Darksaber. 2 people have given it to you? Fuck off. You're not a Mandalorian. You're not a warrior. That's for such an ego-driven culture that wouldn't work.
Moff Gideon has not used his rightful entitlement to the throne of Mandalore to any extent we've seen, right? He clearly wants the power, and he says it's not just a sword, it wields power. Having it means you're powerful. He wants the weapon.
The story has power.
The story has power, but we haven't seen what he's able to do with it, politically.
No, we kind of have, and I think that's a subtlety, though. I think that comes from all of Mandalore being so broken, is the fact that if the leader is literally the Empire and is trying to kill your people, like you're putting like Mandalorians in these little underground factions, and you've separated them across the galaxy. That's exactly what he would have wanted to do with the Darksaber, is to completely just shatter the Mandalorian culture and make them no longer unified as a singular culture. And so that's what Bo is really trying to get back, is if we can unify the families with the Darksaber, that way we won't have infighting and we'll be able to reclaim our planet back from Mandalore. So it's likely that, like, I believed earlier in the season that we were going to end up probably on Mandalore, or if not this season, next season, because I expected Gideon had some form of like big ass outpost there.
Wait a second. Mandalore still exists. It hasn't been turned to glass.
Well, interestingly, I heard somebody say that they may actually be turned to glass in certain areas, literally, because we have seen it. It was like urban, it was an urban planet in a lot of ways, and it was bombed to smithereens by the Empire.
Right.
And so we see it in Rebels, like in Clone Wars, it's urban. In Rebels, it's like salt flats and desert. And so
I thought it got Alderaan, though. I thought it was blown out of the sky.
no, it didn't get blown out of the sky, but Mando seems to believe that it's like inhospitable and that you can't even go there anymore. But by the sounds of things, potentially it literally could have been turned to glass if the sand itself was then bombed.
Okay.
Because if you burn sand at a high enough temperature, it turns to glass.
Yeah.
And so literally, if you light a sand planet on fire, like Boba, he's not necessarily being serious, but he's also maybe not exaggerating to the degree that we think he is.
Maybe.
So
I wouldn't have thought of that. I love the description of something that's been blown up as turning it to glass, because you just picture like a busted bus shelter or something.
But also the Beskar angle as well, because we know that they have completely raped of all of its resources.
Right.
And so they've done everything they can to really just lay it to bear. I can't wait to see what it looks like. That'll be really cool.
Let's talk about Beskar, because it is identified early on as like a qualifier. These are your powers. These are your weaknesses early on. The Darksaber can cut through anything except for Beskar. And we knew this, I guess. We knew this kind of going in already. And then we get that duel that we've been predicting all season, the Darksaber against the Mandalorian staff, which is indeed pure Beskar. They've used the word pure to describe it. And sure, I guess, but it does appear to be heating up. Is this just a nitpick?
No, that was what I expected.
Okay.
That's just what I expected. Like, yes, it can't cut through pure Beskar, but I imagine it can. It can't. Like it's not going to cut through it. It will, like the same way like Qui-Gon cuts through the blast doors, kind of.
Yeah.
He's still able to get his lightsaber through with pretty much ease, but it takes him a while to move it through. I imagine that Beskar, you're not even getting through. You're not even like starting to make that dent, but eventually over time it will burn. It will hit a melting temperature, and your lightsaber will probably be able to pass through. But in a duel like that, you're not going to hold it up against each other for like 5 minutes or 20 minutes.
The other Beskar nitpick is that we both were under the impression that Dark Troopers were made of Beskar, and I guess not.
Well, they were never in Legends, but they were made of Frick, which was one of the other metals in the galaxy far, far away that had similar properties to Beskar and was lightsaber proof. My guess, just logically, it would make sense if these were like a Beskar alloy, so that because like they were blaster resistant, they were flame resistant, like they were pretty hard to take down, but a lightsaber took them down with relative ease. And so they're definitely not pure Beskar, but there's something that's keeping them so incredibly like rigid and strong. And it was interesting because they did the reverse by making these pure droids. And so in Legends, the third iteration of the Dark Troopers were the ones that fit humans, as opposed to the ones that no longer needed humans.
Right.
And so they kind of flipped that around, but that makes sense. And that was a really good fit for allowing Luke to kick ass.
Obviously these are some of the coolest and strongest droids we've ever seen in Star Wars. They kind of have like all season I've been calling them a cross between Darth Vader and Iron Man, and maybe that's just because of the Favreau of it all. I actually think if we're going to make Avengers comparisons, they're a lot more like Ultron. And in fact, there are like kind of camera visuals that appear to mirror some of that. And just because of their like enormous brute strength.
Apparently they're similar to like, there's some robots in Battlestar Galactica called like Cylons or something. And apparently they look a lot like them. And people are making obviously the quick mind brain jump because of Katie Sackhoff. So
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense. The other thing is like they kind of seem to be playing this like when Dr. Pershing says there are no humans inside, they're all droid. They eliminated the human factor because it was a weakness.
Mhm.
That's fine. I understand what he's saying, but that has existed before. Like in the prequels, most of the army was droids. They were lamer,
Mm.
but like it's not like this is the first time in Star Wars they've taken the human factor out.
No, no, it's a matter of these droids are. It is one of the first time the Empire has done it.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
Empire didn't deal with too many droids. I mean, they had some, but not so much for destruction. So when it came to, like, they used droids, but not so much as a military. Whereas this is like a black ops force, and so they haven't done it before. But like these are like almost like they're also supposed to, I think, mirror the super battle droids as well that almost kills Din in the flashback in season 1.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of it going down to Din being the Mandalorian savior for Grogu, the way that the Mandalorians were saviors for him, sort of. So
Well, and IG droids are a lot more hardcore than battle droids too. Like
yeah, definitely. But they were less of an Imperial droid. But even like K2SO, for example, is an Imperial droid and is badass, but that's not his first use isn't for like black ops shit, the way these dark troopers kind of are. They're like black ops droids, which never really have existed.
that duel between Mando and Gideon felt a little short.
Mm.
He's a great actor. All of his scenes are phenomenal. But I feel a little unserved by him in this season. I don't know what to do with him next. I don't know why they're so desperate to keep him alive when he's this dangerous. He himself wanted to die, which, by the way, really dark for Star Wars to put a pistol to your head at any moment.
Mm.
And he survived the season, but as I said, completely neutered. So what happens next for Gideon?
Breakout.
Okay. You think so?
Yep.
'Cause you've never said that he is the definitive ultimate bad guy of this show.
No, I think he will be, at least for the next season as well. And or maybe not next season, but season 4, he'll be coming back. I think you and I've chatted a little off pod and just in on the pod, Thrawn likely being the Thanos of the Favreau and Filoni verse of this time period. Yeah. But I would still imagine Gideon will be the main antagonist for Bo and Din, especially now that they have more backstory with each other and they have more. Their next battle is going to be even more engaging. But Gideon was good with the Darksaber, but Din punked him off. Yeah, it wasn't that long. It was a pretty quick fight.
No, yeah, he was not nearly as strong as a single Dark Trooper, by the way. Like, Din had a way harder time with the Dark Trooper. And I know I'm a little all over the place here, but like when he was smashing his head into the wall, that Dark Trooper was like, did you think at any point that helmet might shatter and then that would be the end of the helmet? Because I kind of thought for a second, like, oh, that helmet's fucked.
No, I didn't. For some reason, it didn't look like it was breaking. It just looked like it was one of those moments where it was him just getting his ass handed to him, similar to the Mudhorn sort of thing. But no, I wasn't thinking that. You're not the only one who has thought that, though, and it makes some sense because I mean, especially if it was Beskar on Beskar would be what's going on there.
Yeah, the music in that sequence in particular is awesome, and the whole episode, the music is amazing because they clearly used a full orchestra for the first time, and so
it was incredible.
Whole episode, and we have Luke's theme at the end. But in that
new theme, yeah, it's great.
In that sequence in particular, where he's face to face with he's mono a roboto with that Dark Trooper. All digital score. I don't know if you noticed, but like the rest of the episode is this full orchestra, and it's so smart that in that sequence we get digital music, which is rare in Star Wars in general. Although, for instance, kind of this young buck, this robot, of course, is not human, and that's the whole point of what makes them terrifying. And so, why not reflect that in music, as Star Wars has always done so beautifully? I just thought that was a neat.
Yeah, it was cool. Like they had techno, and like the Dark Troopers were like marching in the hallway.
So intentional, and I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah, no, it was really good. The scoring was incredible, and especially when Luke shows up, like that was some epic scoring.
Did you make any observations about Luke's lightsaber style?
It was very similar to Anakin's.
Yeah, one-handed, which is not what we've seen from Luke before.
The reason for that was because of George's philosophical change.
Okay.
So he had the belief that swords should be considered broadswords and required two-handed use throughout the original trilogy, and scrapped that for the prequels and moving forward with Star Wars. He wanted the control and energy. So especially if you were new to using a lightsaber, you really got to be consistent and take into account the energy and the power that you're wielding. But powerful Luke Skywalker, one-handed should be fine, sort of thing. And even like Vader, for example, and Luke, they do more one-handed stuff in Empire. There's no like one-handed stuff in A New Hope, for example. But yeah, it does change his style a little bit, but that shows you that he's matured a little bit more and that he has more strength and that he's able to kind of use his surroundings a little bit better. Definitely fighting a lot more measured and thoughtful than he does against when he's hacking and slashing against Vader.
Right. Well, exactly.
But it was cool to see him be very Anakin Skywalker in that regard too.
Can we talk about the Uncanny Valley?
Sure, let's definitely talk about it. I can send you a clip of one that's better. I found one already.
Oh, that someone's deep faked it already?
Yeah.
Look, I just can't bring myself to complain about it. I wanted to put it in the takebacks. Yeah, it's imperfect. Star Wars has always had a certain amount of imperfection in its special effects. Matt Slaney was like, he asked me yesterday, was there any like backlash about this? And I was like, no, fuck off. It's Star Wars. Like, could you do it? It's really great.
Well, that's actually the problem.
Well,
it's the fact that there's enough people online that can do it better.
I just don't know. I don't know enough about the technology. I think that it might be an oversimplification to say we could do it better. Like, I don't know. I don't know enough about deep fakes. I just know that this is my other thing is like Star Wars never fools me. Like, I know it's fiction. Like, I'm not suffering from being reminded that it's not real. I know it's not real, and I'm loving it anyway.
Yeah, but it's still off-putting. And I will say this: it actually makes a massive difference what screen you're watching on. It makes a massive, massive, massive difference.
What do you mean?
The TV I watched it on, it looked weird. Watching it on a computer monitor, it did not look that weird.
It was one shot that looked kind of off to me. Like when he first takes his hood off, I'm like, that's good enough for me, baby. That's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of skin smoothing. That's one of the big problems. But the big one is the fact that he has dead eyes. And you wouldn't think that, but when you see somebody else do it, his eyes are like dead as hell in this. And it's fine. But it does bother me that you can find dozens of better Princess Leia's online for the end of Rogue One, and already for Luke Skywalker on this. Peter Cushing one, I think, is still actually, well, the best one is Luke in Rise of Skywalker.
He was wearing a helmet there.
He is.
Yeah,
that is true. And part of the reasons why this looks a little weird is the hair.
And Peter Cushing is a strange looking person too.
He is, and he's old. He's wrinkled.
Yep.
So that's beneficial. And if you see them side by side, there's still, you can see it can be improved, but it is the best one. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with it. Don't get me wrong at all. I'm totally okay with the fact that the way they did this Luke. I was thrilled it was Mark Hamill. I prefer that to being like Sebastian Stan. Funny enough, the guy who I forget what his first name is, but his last name is Lloyd Jones. The guy who did the body double for Luke in this, which is funny because James Earl Jones and Jake Lloyd.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So another Lloyd Jones doing Skywalker movements, and
they probably couldn't believe that. That's so fun. Yes, I think there was a little bit of inquiry about that. So Mark Hamill, of course, is involved in this, but it's not his physicality.
No,
it is a modulation of his voice. Which, by the way, I think they did a great job on that because we would have known right away if it's 60-year-old Mark Hamill doing the voice for 30-year-old Luke, and that wasn't an issue.
No, it was excellent, and I think whatever modulation they did was spot on. Although I'm listening to the radio versions of the original trilogy, and there's so much extra Luke Skywalker dialogue that you can pull from that time period. It's incredible. But
can use that, I guess, can't they?
No reason not to.
Why not?
Star Wars properties, talking about Star Wars stuff, saying things like Han and Leia,
and Mark Hamill did the voice for Luke in that video drama. That's important.
So that's one of the key things for sure.
And that guy's put in hours, hasn't he?
Yeah, he loves his Star Wars, and that's why this was really cool. And he was thrilled that it wasn't spoiled. And man, that makes such a Like when so many of the appearances were spoiled this season, to have the big one not be is
Right.
crazy. Because even Ahsoka, like they spoil it in the season.
Yep.
So this was the real one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. All right.
Want to do some trivia or quotes?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Trivia, I guess.
Sure.
I had a hard time with trivia. Padawan question. Moff Gideon's Imperial light cruiser used to employ roughly how many crew members? Used to.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Don't overthink it.
100.
Several hundred. That's
Several
all she
hundred.
said. And now it operates with a fraction of that.
What color is the button that opens the door, the blast door, to reveal Luke Skywalker?
Is it green?
No.
I don't know.
It's yellow.
Yellow. All right. Okay. Jedi Knight question. What is the name of the flash drive type thing used to open and close doors on the cruiser?
Oh,
Don't overthink it.
was it the data stick? Is that what it is, or
What shape is it?
it's cylinder? Is it a data cylinder?
Code cylinder.
Code cylinder? Yeah.
Pretty close.
Yeah, those things are used as like kind of like key fobs and USB drives.
Yeah.
But they do serve
Powerful the last 2 episodes. Actually, there's been a lot of these.
yeah, no, they serve a pretty good purpose in the galaxy, but they also make a lot of sense too in terms of accessing terminals and whatnot. Yeah. What type of droid is seen roaming the halls of Gideon's ship?
I don't know what it's called, but it's like a protocol droid, right? Like from the original Star Wars, the one that has like kind of, it looks like 3PO, except it has like bug eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as friendly looking.
Yeah, there's actually a really great one in Rebels. His name's AP5, and he's a very funny droid. But it's an RA7 droid, and he's actually the inverse 3PO. He is all silver, and he has a gold leg.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's
So
kind of
it's
cool.
kind of funny. Like they got mixed up in the scrap pile somewhere, probably.
Since you mentioned 3PO, R2, now the only Star Wars character to appear in all live action Star Wars things, not just the films. He's also appeared in the live action show.
He was not in Solo.
Okay, yeah.
Anthony Daniels was in Solo, but not 3PO. Played Sagwa, the Wookiee.
Interesting. Okay, well, I kind of blew it on that observation then. Why wouldn't they find a way to put R2-D2 in Solo? I guess that would be...
It wouldn't fit.
It would be tough. I mean, it didn't really fit in... was it...
Rogue One?
Rogue One either. They had the kind of...
They didn't, but it worked in the sense that the way everything was timing, we get to see, like, they're on Leia's ship. They kind of should be there. So,
yeah. And
but of course,
service.
Yeah, it was an appropriate level of fan service for sure.
Right. My turn? Question?
Oh, for a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me to ask one.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't doing that. Anyway, this is a two-parter. I'm going to ask you both of them for the Legend one because it's fun. How many Dark Troopers do we see confirmation of Luke Skywalker destroying, and how many does he destroy based on the schematics that we see of the light cruiser, and how many bays there are for Dark Troopers?
I mean, I have no idea. I don't know. I think there's probably 20 Dark Troopers total.
Nope.
Okay.
He takes out 39 Dark Troopers.
Nice.
Yeah. We get to see 28 be taken out. Din takes out 1, and there's 40 Dark Troopers in total. So Luke takes out 39 Dark Troopers. That's insane.
This is the way. Good for you, pal. All right, this kind of gives away some of our post-credit sequence, but what is the significance of Bib Fortuna's staff that he holds?
It came with the action figure.
And only the action figure, never before seen in cinema before.
Yeah, they do a few of those things. Apparently, someone also pointed out that there was like some super background character who had like a machete, and the machete was one of the items that the Jawas offered Cobb Vanth in the pilot of the season. Like, here, would you like this? What about this? No, I'll take the armor.
You just reminded me, we didn't see Cobb Vanth again. First episode of the season, we thought, like, here's a great new addition to the series. Surely he's going to turn up in another show, if not this show again, which is very possible. We'll see him in the Oliphant again, but like, I'm a little disappointed we only got one dose of him this year.
True. Rangers of the New Republic or the Book of Boba Fett. Either of those are very possible to see him in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Before we talk about Boba Fett, are you done with trivia?
Yeah, I'm done with trivia.
Okay.
Some quotes?
I just wanted to talk about the heartbreaking moment
Oh yeah, sure.
of the helmet coming off, and the holding of the leg and the face. I watched Muppet Christmas Carol the other day for the umpteenth time as one of my favorites. And it was specifically noticeable to me this year how tremendous Michael Caine's performance is, considering how few other actors he's working with.
That's a great
And
point.
of course, there's a lot of humanity to Muppets. That's what makes them timeless characters. But this is still like a classically trained British actor completely taking these puppets seriously and completely sells the role. And the movie is emotional and hilarious and immersive. And I think Pedro Pascal, granted in a much smaller capacity here, completely buries that performance. Like, I mean, yes, he has like a very sincere relationship to an animatronic for the entire 2-season arc of this show so far. But in this sequence in particular, especially face to face with Grogu, which we haven't seen before, it couldn't feel more real. And we know that to him is just a machine, a puppet, and it completely makes you well up every single time. And I just wanted to say, like, last year, Pedro Pascal got nominated for an Emmy, and that seemed a little silly, frankly. He's a great actor, but like, okay. This year, it's legit.
Yeah, it really is. It's incredible how much you feel for him, and he's all I care about is the kid. I'm only here for the kid.
Yeah.
And it's just, after all that, go with him. He's one. What does he say? It's so heartbreaking. Hey, go on. That's who you belong with. He's one of your kind. I'll see you again. I promise.
Yeah.
All right, pal. It's time to go. Don't be afraid. Oh my God. That's so. It's so like, it's very much like Shmi. Saying goodbye to Anakin, and hopefully a much different result.
Yeah. We don't want Grogu slaughtering them like animals because of what happened to his dad. Mandalorian.
No. Yeah, we don't want to see him coming back. I slaughtered Bo-Katan. She was an animal.
Don't be afraid is a good potential episode title for this podcast.
Or one X-wing. Great, we're saved.
Yeah, that's not bad. I didn't know sidekicks were allowed to talk. I just thought that was a really funny Star Wars like meta line.
That was a good one, especially seeing, and then what Boba Fett says after is, well, isn't the quactor calling the stifling slimy?
That's right. Yeah.
With pot calling the kettle black.
You're a clone. I've heard your voice thousands of times. That's like a good internal Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
line.
And that's a deep cut. That is mean. Mine might be the last one you hear though. Is Boba's great response.
Not all Mandalorians are bounty hunters. Some of us serve a higher purpose. And like, this is like, it's just a complete misunderstanding of Din. Like,
yeah, go fuck
you're
yourself,
misreading
Bo.
him entirely. That's not what he's here for at all.
No, but Boba is. Boba's a bounty hunter and a well-known one.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way. The dark saber doesn't have power. The story does. Without that blade, she's a pretender to the throne.
Right. He's such a son of a bitch.
The blood in his mouth as he's saying it.
Yeah. Oh, he's just sneering. He's like loving this, which is classic villain, right? Like he's twirling his mustache. Like he's just loving that everything, even though he has been bested, he just loves to see the chaos around him. Another one of his lines is a friendly piece of advice: assume that I know everything, like the fact that your wrist launcher has fired its one and only salvo. He's just always on. He's one step ahead. Maybe in this sequence, he's one step ahead as well. Maybe he wanted to get apprehended.
This is where it's going. I'm guessing Bo-Katan and her boarding party have arrived at the bridge, seeking me, or more accurately, this. But I'm not there. And I imagine they've killed everyone on the bridge, being the murderous savages that they are. And now they're beginning to panic. You see, she wants this. Do you know why? Because it brings power. Whoever wields this sword has the right to lay claim to the throne, to the Mandalorian throne. All I wanted was to study his blood. The child is extremely gifted and has been blessed with rare properties that have the potential to bring order back to the galaxy. He's soliloquies and is just explaining his position, and I see your bond with him. Take him. But you will leave my ship immediately, and we will go our separate ways. And then he
clearly watched this a few times, by the way. You seem to have his cadence down.
I love Moff Gideon, though, too. He's such a good villain. And you're sparing my life. Well, this should be interesting. why don't you kill him now and take it? When they get there, like talking to Bo, like, kill him. Let's see this. He's so evil.
I do find it a little silly when he's like tossed aside and there just happens to be a blaster on the floor. Like this happens in every action thing. Like pay better attention to the guy you've arrested. He's very dangerous.
Yes.
And he lands a couple of shots on Bo. Like for a second, I'm like, did he just kill Bo-Katan?
Well, he's trying to shoot friggin' Grogu, and then Din once again has to step in. I don't like Gina Carano, but she has a couple good moments in this episode, like blaster butting him in the face. That was pretty great.
I like that. And then also she can't get her rifle to work. And so she just like ends up using it as like a blunt instrument, which is great. Although when she's cursing, and there's been like 6 too many dank Ferricks this season, she also says son of a mud scuffer. And I
don't like that either. There's another curse word that they used in Rebels was Carabast. And I'm surprised they've not used that in anything else. I do think it was funny the way she said though, oh, I think that did it. Excuse me. And then just completely blast through a bunch of them.
Luke says to Grogu, come little one. And Mando says he doesn't want to go with you. And Luke says he wants your permission. And you're like, oh no, now it has to be put on Din to make this horrible choice.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Grogu, and it was so cool to see Grogu like putting his hand up on the monitor, like, oh, he's here for me. And seeing the lightsaber, like, oh, I remember those. This isn't okay. And starting to see the R2 thing is also interesting. Like, had he ever met R2 before?
Very possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many Jedi that operated the Jedi Temple.
R2 secretly met everybody at some point. So,
well, also there weren't many people to survive Anakin's massacre at that temple. R2 was one of them, though.
Right.
And somehow so was Grogu. How did he get out of there? So that could be kind of an interesting. And it was interesting because it allows Grogu to feel more comfortable. And then he goes and kind of does his little reach up to Luke, like, I'm with you now, buddy, but I don't walk very fast.
This is a little bit of a nitpick, but I couldn't help but notice that when Grogu has handcuffs on, his hands could definitely slip through those handcuffs.
Oh, could they?
His tiny little hands. They're these great big cuffs. He could definitely take those off.
I loved how sleepy he was in this episode.
Yeah.
And someone pointed out, and of course this is it, it's because Moff Gideon took so much of his damn blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like kind of like stoned out there when Din comes into the room and Gideon's got the Darksaber over his head.
Also, he is young and the Force makes him tired. And suddenly Luke is there and that's a whole lot of force for his little body to take.
Well, actually, inversely, that's what wakes him up.
Okay. Well,
because he seems really sleepy. And then when Luke shows up, he's starting to like kind of, he wakes up and goes to the monitor and he's like, Dad, here's one.
So I want to talk about the Book of Boba Fett. I really have to pee because we're doing a morning podcast. Is there any chance we can I don't know if you can keep chatting because I know we're recording for video here and I don't know how.
Yeah, I'll keep chatting. Sure.
Okay, cool. I'll be right back.
Yeah. I'll talk about some kind of the little deep stuff. There was one cool thing that specifically on that planet that they had gone to recruit Bo and Casca. As they land, there's a Mandalorian or whatever, I don't know how you actually pronounce it, but it's they're gauntlet fighters, and so they have their specific Mandalorian fighters that they would have used in the Mandalorian Wars. So that could be an answer as to how Din maybe gets a new ship. He could be using a starfighter and then an operator to the light cruiser that Gideon has that I guess Bo-Katan now owns. So we're not exactly sure how his ship situation is going to go next year, but he could maybe operate that way, or he could get a new version of his ship. But certainly his ship's not going to be the Slave One, so that's a good sign in the sense that that'll be very much for the Book of Boba Fett. The Cruel Imperial at the start was another thing that was like really great to see, and you see Pershing pretty quickly being like, I don't really need to be part of this Empire thing. I've just kind of been still part of it, and so I have to kind of go with the flow because these other two jerky pilots have been leading the way. But one of them was pretty quick to be willing to surrender to Kara as she boards, but the other one was just so damn cruel and points to the teardrop tattoo. And it once again brings up the point about the Death Star workers that died during that, and he sees the rebels as terrorists, and so it's another good point in terms of kind of broadening out why these people are still involved with the Empire. I mean, he's clearly a bad guy. He shoots his colleague in the back, but you still also have to, in some ways, see what's the twisted minds that they have. And after we had Valen Hess last week, and we get to see somebody a little bit lower in the totem pole, but still a believer, and that was another thing that was kind of interesting to see. Anything else to talk about? There was the moment of just having those 4 badass women was another great thing as well. The fact that you have obviously Din sneaking out the back, but the fact that there's Fennec, Kara, Casca, and Bo, and a lot of people were pointing it out just online at how, in particular, it felt nice to have a girl power moment that was completely non-pandering. And that it was, most people, you just don't even realize it until the end. Like, oh, those were all women. That was really cool. And that's probably to a degree why they didn't have Axe Woves in this episode, was because they wanted to have that girl power moment. And it would have been weird to have him there.
I wondered about him though.
Yeah, but it was just cool in the sense that it was just like, oh, these are just good characters that they've built up. And people were comparing it to like the kind of in your face, shoved down your throat version done in Endgame. And so this was just a little bit more natural. And if you just have consistent, good female characters, it doesn't really matter the way that you go about it. And people don't see it as being kind of a pandering moment. So that was nice. And you got someone like Fennec who's doing like the badass shooting through like things and the kicks. I'm so thrilled that we're going to be getting more of her.
She's really cool. Yeah. You're right. I think I mentioned last week that I found her a little uninteresting, and I have to take that back. I find her very cool. And frankly, I'm starting to really like Cara Dune. She's not the best actress in the world, but you're right. She had a good episode.
Yeah.
And right from the beginning, like she owns that like Imperial face-off at the start with Dr. Pershing. Like,
yeah, that's kind of what I was just chatting a little bit while you were in the washroom, just how like just revolting that guy was.
He was good though. Like that guy really showed up for his one tiny Star Wars role.
Yeah, it was showing a believer at a lower rung than like a Valen Hess guy, but you still have these people who, for some reason, still believe that the Empire was right, and then using like the Luke Skywalker was a terrorist sort of mindset.
What's next for Dr. Pershing? Because this is twice now he has like shown a moral compass, and
Pershing is not an evil guy. It's
no,
just
I know.
Not, and so he will be arrested by the New Republic likely, and he will serve a very short sentence probably. I don't imagine that. It would be great if he was used as like a confidential informant or was a useful source of information, because he's a good actor, he's a good character, but doesn't really seem to fit in this anymore, and is more likely going to be a character for like Rangers of the New Republic. It wouldn't surprise me if he fit more on that one now that he's a prisoner of Kara's.
True, yeah. And maybe he won't be brought back, but I find this guy kind of interesting, and we haven't had like a scientist in Star Wars. Like we haven't had one of these like lab guys in Star Wars in a long time, if ever. And so I think that there's like
a human one.
Yeah, there's something to do there, especially since clones are clearly like a reoccurring implicity to Star Wars. They're gonna keep using that, and so yeah, let's bring in the expert, especially if he's kind of a good guy.
Yeah, and I think if like maybe like the birth of the First Order is more likely to be the main villain of Rangers of the New Republic potentially, and so potentially his knowledge of what their intentions are could make him a useful character.
Since you mentioned the First Order, is there a connection to draw between the fact that Gideon keeps talking about order and the fact that the First Order is on the horizon? Like that's clearly what they're setting up, right?
Yes, they're clearly setting up that's how Palpatine ran his operation to grow Snoke's. Grogu's blood is what fuels Snoke. I think that's pretty much a slam dunk. We don't know for sure, but that's got to be part of the process. There's no other logical instance, and it's completely set up that way. Especially after we saw the siege, when like they had the tanks of like early version Snoke's, and they had the scar in the head the same spot. So it makes too much sense.
How are people going to react when that's confirmed and ultimately a series that has been embattled critically, and I mean the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, is then kind of retconned and patchworked by the show that was supposed to be separate from it? Like, are people going to be mad to see the cross-pollination of these two worlds?
Yes and no. Some people will be, because those people can't be happy and have sad lives.
That's true. That's kind of true.
But people, if you begrudge the Clone Wars for making the prequels better, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And so if you don't like the sequels, they're only going to get better for you from here on out. Mm-hmm. If you like the sequels, they're only going to make more sense from here on out.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to only like them more from here on out. There's a reason why I get so frustrated at The Rise of Skywalker is because it makes me like The Force Awakens less. The Force Awakens is so damn good, and they don't like people say, "Oh, JJ went against all these things that Rian Johnson did." No, he didn't. He went against everything he set up in The Force Awakens. Yeah. Rian Johnson did a little bit of a misdirection, and JJ dove it off a cliff in the end by going a completely different direction. And so I think that by this taking a bit of a Clone Wars approach, and I think specifically because they have so many new properties now, that people don't have to worry about it, the Mandalorian being sacrificed so that we can get this other thing that pieces the galaxy together. No, we've got all these properties, and they'll piece the galaxy together a little bit here and there, and so that the picture will kind of make up itself. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a show that carried more weight than others in terms of being that kind of Clone Wars conduit to make this time period like really filling in a lot of those gaps. Like I said before, I thought it would have been the best one to do that would have been something that starred Mark Hamill voicing Luke Skywalker in an animated show, so that you can have Ben Solo be a character. And that would be one that was particularly serves the sequels. But I think it's just a matter of if you can set up the First Order really well, then that'll at least set up, okay, we've got another 25 years. So let's try and set up certain aspects of the sequel trilogy that maybe don't work as much on their own. And if we can build solid stories that also explain certain aspects, but aren't just trying to prove the validity of everything else, then it can kind of work. It's not so much Band-Aid work, but just cohesion.
Although I would say that Rogue One was largely created as a bandage, right? Like this is a movie that's main purpose is to help you better understand the original Star Wars: A New Hope, and it doesn't suffer from that. It's like if not,
it's not needed.
No, but neither is The Mandalorian. Like the point is, like, you can have something that's there just to help you better understand the greater story of Star Wars, and ultimately it helps you like A New Hope better. Mm-hmm. And because that opening scene of A New Hope will never be viewed the same, and Rogue One on its own rules. And so I think you can have it both ways.
I think you can. I definitely think you can. But I think that's kind of where it comes, is the fact that Rogue One, we didn't realize it, but was directly serving A New Hope. Yeah. And The Mandalorian isn't just directly serving one other thing. And so it does have that benefit in that it may serve the sequels, but stands alone on its own in that capacity.
All the better is what
exactly. And that's me agreeing with you in the sense that that's why The Mandalorian is such a big checkbox. And I mentioned this to you, and I think a lot of people really agree. It's the best thing Star Wars has done since 1983. Yeah. It's just in terms of consistency. Like I went through and I ranked all the episodes, all 16 of the episodes. And I kind of thought it was like, you know what? 14 of the 16 episodes are an 8 out of 10 or higher.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's incredible.
And you get the Gunslinger, which was the one with Jake Cannavale, and then the big spider one from this year, which would be the ones that maybe don't fall that. And even still, 8 of the 16, I would have it a 9 out of 10 or higher.
Wow. Half
the series at a 9. That's incredible. Or higher. And so like an episode like this is right at the very end, and it's the consistency. Like the Clone Wars was incredible. It has some of the best moments in Star Wars, but also has some of like the worst moments in Star Wars. Whereas this has been so consistent top to bottom. They've done a really good job of just like, but it's also at the same time not as limited of a content as movies. And so they've really found a nice balance with these 8 episodes. And when they do kind of other shows, it'll be interesting to see them finding that right balance for them as well. Like Andor, for example, is going to be 12 shows. Clearly, they're sticking to the fidelity of their story more so than they're needing to follow a clear model.
So if you wait until the end of the credits, the final episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian, and it's like a long credit sequence with, by the way, no concept art for the first time ever.
I didn't stay for it. I found it on Reddit and had to go right back.
Yes, and I should just say that like. I woke up on Friday morning to a text from you that was like, don't go on the internet, don't go to work. And you were so right. Like Luke was trending all day long. And you were able to give me a heads up that there's a post-credit sequence. So you kind of like set me up for success, which I appreciate. Although I feel bad for anybody who was going to wait 48 hours to watch this episode of Mando, because you were like really running a risk there.
Yeah, you couldn't.
And I was thinking a little bit about, just before we talk about Boba Fett, I was thinking a little bit about if Disney has a problem with all the TV series they're creating for the on-demand forum, because Game of Thrones was like the last like monoculture event TV, especially for like mainstream geek culture, where everybody was watching at the same time. Like, it was understood that this is what time Game of Thrones is on. Everybody's going to watch it tonight. And, you know, don't be an asshole with spoilers, although it's pretty well established that, like, once you go forth, you're running a risk if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
If you create something for streaming, which is inherently on demand, even in a week-by-week appointment format, it's a little bit more precarious for fans because it is inviting them to watch it on their own time. And I think generally in the culture of movies, most people are not assholes and know the difference. Don't spoil Star Wars Episode 9, for example. But a TV show is more event-oriented, and I think that going forward, if there's going to be big spoiler moments, it's going to be a struggle for some people who are active on the internet to not have stuff ruined for them.
Absolutely. That's what
Marvel's done a good job of that. Like, they've created this like protective shield, so to speak, this like culture around them, which is like, I think the Russo brothers were kind of in charge of that. They're like, listen, don't be an asshole or you're no fan of ours. And Star Wars kind of needs to do something to create that same attitude, especially since their fans are bigger assholes than Marvel fans.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And it's especially important with leaks and stuff like that. And it's great that something like this didn't, because everybody would have known about Luke Skywalker being in it if it had found its way to leak. And so I don't know. It's really great. I do worry a little bit about kind of like those big reveals in the future, but and to be honest, for that reason, it almost would make more sense if they had a better time to release it.
Yeah.
Like if they could, like, but then again, the morning still kind of works. A lot of people don't like to watch in the morning. I get up to make sure I watch it so I don't have to worry about any of it. A lot of people in like California, for example, would stay up, but then like that's the far end there. And so most people, it's the middle of the night when it's coming on. And so I don't know, it's kind of tough.
I wonder a little bit if they were to release the whole season in one dump, like say Stranger Things or The Crown, would it be, you're right, there's a longer period of time for people to have the Luke Skywalker season finale spoiled, but it might be more intrinsic to our understanding of spoiler culture not to do that, because then you understand that you watch this entire season at your own pace and you should be nice. Whereas everyone's experiencing the same 45 minutes of entertainment in the same 48 hours. And so it's a little bit more, gee, I want to talk about this now.
No, but totally. And that's the reason as to why they're doing it is because why would Disney sacrifice having everybody talking about Mandalorian constantly for 10 straight weeks instead of the week and a half that it was the number one binged thing in the world by a country mile? Well, if you have everybody in the world talking about it for 10 weeks, it'll be the number one thing talked about in the world by a country mile regardless.
Right. Well, and this time next year, they might have maybe 12, maybe 16 weeks in a row of Star Wars at the end of the year, because what we know, this is getting...
Let's talk about this now, yeah.
Let's talk about it. So the credits end at Mandalorian, and then we get Twin Sunset. Pan over to Jabba's Palace, which we haven't seen since 83. Inside, Bib Fortuna, now like a lot heavier.
Yeah.
Sits on the throne in Jabba's palace. He's got a slave chained up. He's got like a bunch of cronies and minions hanging around, just like in the Jabba days.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of living it up as the fat ruler of the Tatooine underworld. And then we see a shadow on the stairwell, which is classic, and I love it. And it's Fennec Shand. She comes down, frees the slave. Everyone runs off. Bib Fortuna's terrified. Then we see another shadow, and it's Boba Fett. Boba! I thought you were dead. And really doesn't give him much more opportunity to chat it out. Boba Fett just shoots Bib Fortuna dead. And he slumps over in the seat. Boba pries him out of the chair, sits down. Fennec sits on the arm of the chair. And we get a title card, which is the Book of Boba Fett, coming December 2021, which is also when Mando Season 3 comes out.
No. So this is the reason... God, people are dumb. It was really frustrating.
Are you dumb?
No, not you. The internet was so confused over Mando Season 3.
Yeah.
But it's because Kathleen Kennedy was being a dummy.
Okay.
And then no one knows when Mando Season 3 is coming out now.
Okay, I really thought it was coming on Christmas Day.
We were told it was.
Okay.
Because Kathleen Kennedy said the next chapter of The Mandalorian will be coming out at Christmas. And then we heard that the Book of Boba Fett's coming out December. And then some people were like, is that the same thing? And we're like, no, it's not the same thing. And Jon Favreau confirmed, no, it's not the same thing. But that was what Kathleen Kennedy was talking about.
Oh. That's
The
disappointing.
next chapter of The Mandalorian is the Book of Boba Fett. Season 3 of The Mandalorian will be like, they're currently filming the Book of Boba Fett. When it's done, they'll film The Mandalorian. They'll go right into it. So potentially we could be getting it Christmas next year.
But to be clear,
I'm gonna
the
guess
Book of Boba
no.
Fett is the Book of Boba Fett is not a season of The Mandalorian. To be
No, it is not.
okay.
But that's what everybody thought, or a lot of people thought, and then a lot of people thought, no, that's ridiculous. But it was miscommunication on Disney's part a little bit.
That's disappointing. That sucks.
It is disappointing, but we don't know. It could be at the very beginning of 2022. It could be Christmas, and the Jon Favreau was just like, God damn it, Kathy. We were supposed to be like, we don't know if we can hit that deadline yet, or we don't want to tell people the Book of Boba Fett's only 4 episodes, or like, we don't know. Book of Boba Fett is Favreau, Filoni, and Robert Rodriguez. So he's joining the trio, as he was so perfect on his 1 episode. Even though he was only brought in last minute, he was clearly the right guy for it.
Well, I want to know a little bit more about that last minute story, because it seems so decisive that Robert Rodriguez is doing the episode about Boba Fett's return, and then he's also one of the showrunners for the Boba Fett series, and he's so instrumental in the production design of this new iteration of Boba Fett, which is like violent and brutal, which is what you want.
But it was a year ago, though. That's the thing, and he was given a 19-page script, and so that's what Favreau said. It was just like, you have the ability to put whatever action you kind of want in to beef up the length of this episode. And so that's why he was able to do so much of those sort of things.
Okay.
Everybody now is confident that Danny Trejo will be in the show as well.
I think it's possible. I think
it's extremely possible.
You kind of hated the idea when we talked about it before, but like, there's definitely a way to make Danny Trejo a mechanic in Star Wars.
I kind of hate his face for it. I really make him an alien.
Okay.
He's too Danny Trejo.
Yeah, you think he's distracting?
Yeah, he's Danny Trejo. He's Machete.
I love the title, The Book of Boba Fett. I think that's so
excellent.
Classy. I think this is such a classy way to announce something.
I think we're definitely going to be getting a Sarlacc flashback. Boba and Fett are different greens, and one of them is more acid stained. Fett is more acid stained, I think, in the logo. And so that's my guess. We're going to get the flashback so that we get the
that's kind of one of the outstanding questions about this show, right? Is the timeline, because to me,
it's Mando.
Okay, yeah, but like I think that there's like a broader story to tell with Boba Fett in general, because the way he sits on that throne feels very conclusive to me. And maybe it's the Game of Thrones of it all, but it feels like, all right, now sits on the Iron Throne of Tatooine. I would like to see him survive the Sarlacc and all kinds of other stuff, and like. I don't know if we're going to be treated to that.
It's supposed to be of this timeline, so I think it's going to be a continuation. I don't think it's going to be like a backtrack, but I assume we'll get a flashback. I'd be shocked if we don't get him coming out of the Sarlacc pit. But the story will take place of him being in charge of Jabba's palace or whatever, but it's going to be more kind of a gangster approach or a little bit. I'm curious to know, is he going to kind of clean up Tatooine a little bit? Is he going to maybe like work with Cobb Vanth? Is that the reason why he didn't kill him?
That's the thing. He's kind of a good guy right now.
A little bit. I mean, they just freed a slave and killed Bib Fortuna.
Yeah.
Like, is Boba Fett going to try and kind of reclaim a little bit of armor with that, a little bit of honor with that armor? So it could be kind of interesting to see, is it going to be a revenge tour? Some people have predicted that like Boba is going to go looking for Han Solo. I don't know how you could ever try to do that, but when it comes to revenge, Mace and Han Solo would be top 2 on his list. And we know one of them is very likely dead.
Yeah, well, the other one's definitely not. You're not getting Harrison Ford back.
No, I don't want Alden either.
Don't bring back Alden Ehrenreich. No, they're not going to do
something. No, I don't want them to do that, but it is really cool to see what can be done. I am excited for that show. I'm bummed that it's going to delay when we get Mando season 3, but hopefully not by too much. We get Bad Batch next year. We get Book of Boba Fett next year. And we'll get an absurd number of things in 2022. So we get Mando season 3, Obi-Wan, Andor, and probably season 2 of Bad Batch, and maybe something else.
It's going to be a good couple of years to be a Star Wars podcaster, if a busy time. Is this a natural transition into the news? Anything that we can discuss about?
We're kind of doing the news.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because there's really not a whole lot else to say, because they were focusing all of this on reserving the Book of Boba Fett. There really hasn't been much else said about Rogue Squadron. Jeremy Bulloch passed away, so I guess we're talking about the book of Boba Fett. This is maybe the only other news story, and
Weird.
so sadly linked. Yeah,
It's so weird that the guy who originally played Boba Fett died in the same 24 hours as the announcement of the book of Boba Fett. He has
That's
no
right.
involvement in the show, but like, what an amazing coincidence.
and it was like I because I'm not a huge Boba Fett fan, or wasn't. My biggest fandom for Boba Fett has come from the last month by a landslide.
Right.
So I've watched a few interviews with him, and so it was really weird for me because I'd never watched an interview with Jeremy Bulloch before. I'd watched him with Timor Morrison before, but so like I had only ever seen this guy interview, and then like a couple days later, let's see that he had passed away. I was just like, oh, that's super sad. I looked up to see if he was still alive the other day.
And you liked him. You said he seemed like a sweet guy.
He seemed like a really sweet guy. He clearly loved his involvement in the galaxy far, far away. It was very clear that he, Daniel Logan, and Tamara Morrison got along, and as like because they're the Boba Fetts.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool.
Right.
Of course, very sad as well.
I wonder if Tamara Morrison will consider like slimming down a little bit.
He was wearing a lot of stuff there, and I think he's like got like potbelly strength too.
Oh no, he's not like a schlub. Don't get me wrong, but like he's also like, I don't know. He doesn't look like a martial artist or something. I'm not sure what I'm looking for in him.
Yeah, he's. I think he's going for the Maori warrior look. It was interesting. Someone posted a picture online the way he wears his gun belt and the way his pants are kind of like hammer pants. It's a little bit of an homage, likely to the Maori warrior style, which is cool. And the way he uses the gaffy stick is very much that case.
Anything else going on in the news that we should touch on?
No, I mean, the big thing was the Book of Boba Fett and how that kind of changes the release schedule for Mando Season 3. Mando has been everywhere in the news. It's just dominated this week because of the Luke Skywalker of it all and what's going to happen next with Grogu. But I mentioned to you, certainly, let's hope some Empire Strikes Back of Grogu, where he tells Luke, my friends are in danger. Have you ever felt that, where your friends are in danger and your master didn't want you to leave? Please, let's go save my dad.
Luke, so as not to be a hypocrite, would have to be somewhat accommodating to that. Although
I would think so.
Luke was right when I never really understood why Yoda was discouraging Luke from pausing his training when clearly it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, but he didn't want. He knew what Vader was going to tell him, but he didn't necessarily know that Luke was strong enough to turn that away, or that Vader was maybe strong enough to not kill him, or that Luke would survive such a fall, sort of thing. Like, it doesn't go well for Luke. Yoda's kind of right.
You're right, but ultimately it goes well for Luke.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. All right, well, I guess that's all we have to say. I mean, maybe not. There was just so many things in this episode.
And we have a whole year to talk about those things.
Yeah, and that's really, really exciting. So send along your thoughts, please, on this last episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Any predictions you might have for the Book of Boba Fett, or predictions for any Star Wars thing to come. Also, in the new year, we're going to get back to doing Recorder 6 and 6, our lists, our countdowns of some of our favorite and least favorite and most pressing Star Wars observations and opinions. So if you have any ideas on themes that we could do for episodes and you'd like to participate, we would, of course, love to hear from you. I guess I want to say a couple of happy birthdays before we say goodbye for the holidays. On Tuesday, December 22nd, a happy birthday to Hugh Corshi, who played Captain Panaka. Next Tuesday, the 29th, happy birthday to Diego Luna, who's gearing up to be in more Star Wars, which is exciting. Mm-hmm. And this Saturday, Boxing Day, December 26th, happy birthday to Tamora Morrison. So that was good timing.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Yes, as I said, we'd love to hear from you at Recorder66 Podcast. No, I always get this wrong. At Recorder66 on Twitter, Recorder66podcast@gmail.com. Please rate and review on your preferred podcast app. Have a safe and lovely holiday season, and until we are together again,
may the Force be with you.